As you said, it's not just these past 2 weeks that we've seen tensions between these two neighbours. This is a conflict that's been going on for decades. As Douglas Herbert, our international affairs editor, will tell us, Doug, this has been going on, since the bloody partition in 1947.
Absolutely. Look, these two countries have been at each other's throats, quite literally, since 1947. And why is that year so significant? It's the year in which the British Empire, basically, there was the partition of British India into two independent states, India and Pakistan. Kashmir has been sort of the flashpoint of that partition. Yes, other areas as well, but Kashmir especially, because since then, essentially, both India and Pakistan have claimed control of Kashmir. But in reality, in geopolitical reality, we have had what's called a line of control, which was originally a UN-brokered ceasefire line after a first war that India and Pakistan fought over Kashmir. It was drawn in 1948. It was called a ceasefire line. Later, there was another war, 1965. It's even a smaller one in 1971. After which a so-called line of control. It was sort of an even harder line than the original UN ceasefire line. That line of control is a precarious, to say the least, border, which has essentially been in place and has divided these two areas of Kashmir. There's the Indian-controlled part in the south and center, which is about 55% of the territory. To the north of that is a Pakistani-administered part of Kashmir. Remember, both countries claim full control, but in effect, they each administer these portions. So 30% is administered by Pakistan. A less talked about part of Kashmir, there's actually a part in the northeast, about 15% of the territory, which is administered by China, just to make it a little more complicated. But the parts we're focusing on and the parts that these flare-ups, periodic flare-ups and even all-out wars have been centered on is this division. And as a lot of these conflicts often have it, there's obviously a hard religious element here too, because the part that this is a Muslim majority territory, Kashmir, all of it. But the fact is, the BJP party of India's Prime Minister Modi, critics would say, has tried to instrumentalize his Hindu nationalist agenda and imposing it on Kashmir. Remember, the India-administered part of Kashmir, the southern part I was just talking about, has a Muslim majority. But in recent years, we've had Modi, in a way, try to impose what some people say is a Hindu nationalist agenda that has made things even more tense. But the main takeaway here, Karis, is that, there have been 3 wars essentially fought since this British partition of India. 2 of those have been hard focused, even 3 on the Kashmir area, 1947, 1965, and then the last major one in 1999. So this is, like you say, not just the past 2 weeks. Going back now 7-8 decades, we have seen wars, skirmishes, exchanges of fire, and flare-ups along what has become one of the world's most militarized borders, this line of control.
Well, tell us what happened in 2019 in Kashmir. There was a sudden change to the territory status on the Indian side.
Absolutely. That's the year I didn't mention, right? I mentioned 1999. What happened in 2019, and I was speaking about Narendra Modi's Hindu nationalist agenda, he essentially rushed through a presidential order which revoked an article of India's constitution. It was Article 370, for the policy wonks out there, or their trivia quizzes. He revoked an article which had granted special autonomous status to Kashmiris in Indian-administered Kashmir. So remember, the southern part of Kashmir, administered by India, had enjoyed for about 7 decades, going back to 1947, this special autonomous status. What this revocation of the constitutional article did is it basically took away that special status. It imposed a drastic, severe, draconian security clampdown in the region. This was in August 2019. As part of this security clampdown, in addition to mass sweeping arrests across the region, there was a lot of violence, a lot of protests. Phone lines were shut down. Internet access was shut down, and a lot of Kashmiris saw this as a way for, in so many words, Narendra Modi to basically impose a Hindu dominance or to change the Muslim demographic makeup of this region. He obviously would deny having that agenda, but that was effectively what happened. It also allowed outsiders to buy land in India-administered Kashmir. Another reason critics say this was part of a Hindu agenda to dilute and to change the Muslim demographic of the region. And the legacy of that remains to this day.
All right, Doug Herbert, thanks very much for breaking that down for us.